Hi, and welcome to this week's video blog on Some Assembly Required. I'm Sarah Hammaker. A few weeks ago, I talked about how we need to ignore the verbal junk that our kids do. When we tell them to do something, they throw a fit, something like that. Today, I want to explore that a little bit further and talk about what happens when it's a fun thing and your child is having a sour face, a bad attitude. Here's my example. So my family, as you know, I have 4 children between the ages of 10 and 15. And we went to Colonial Williamsburg for the day. Now, one of my sons was telling me how boring it was going to be. He was laying himself on the floor. Even my teenage girls were like, I can't believe we have to do this. Why are you making us do this? We'd rather stay at home and look at our iPods, whatever. I just simply told them, I don't want to hear you complain anymore. If you're going to complain on the inside, I can't help that we don't want to hear it. And let's go and have some fun. Here's a map. What do you want to do? Within within 10 minutes, we hadn't even walked to Colonial Williamsburg. The boys were all excited about seeing the jail or something, armory, guns, you know, how boys are. And my girls were like, oh, I think we want to go see the courthouse presentation where they enact old, like old actual court cases and you get to hear about it. Oh, and we want to go do this thing as well. 10 minutes and everyone was fine. The rest of the day, nobody complained. I didn't hear any whining. Of course, I told them not to, but that doesn't mean they don't while their faces. We all had a great time. It was a good day. And we even talked about we're going to go back there. We even talked about, well, what do we want to do when we go back? How do we want to plan this later this summer? I tell you this to remind you that our children are run by emotions. They feel something and they say something, even teenagers. But what they feel in that moment doesn't mean that's how they're going to feel the whole activity. All too often, we parents cave and are like, oh, okay, well then you don't have to do this. You don't have to do X because they complained. I saw this happen with parents who who would let their children when they reach a certain age stay home from visits with relatives, with grandparents. Now this wasn't because there was anything nothing, no abuse going on at the grandparents. The kids just were bored and they didn't want to go. And rather than saying, you got no choice, we're going to go see the grandparents, you can either be bored or you can choose to have a good time, and just remind them that family's important and we need to do this, the parents would just let them stay home because they complained. Maybe one time. Who knows how many times. We need to be careful about letting our children's emotional response, because these are emotional responses, dictate how we as parents allow them to do or not to do things. We need to make sure that we just tell them, look, I understand visiting your grandma is not the most exciting thing in the world, but she loves you, and here's how you can have a better time. Now, if you're still going to complain, I don't want to hear about it. I'd rather you not even complain on the inside, but I don't want to hear about it, and it's your choice. I think just sometimes reminding our children that they can choose to have a good attitude or they can choose to have a bad attitude. Even when we're doing things that should be, quote, fun, they can choose what kind of attitude they have. And so you don't give them options. You merely tell them, this is the way it is. I hope you choose a better attitude. But if you don't, you got to keep that attitude yourself, because the rest of us want to have fun. Bad attitudes are addictive, and bad attitudes are contagious. If you allow one kid to continue to complain, soon enough another kid's complain, and then another. And when you have 4 kids, that's a lot of complaining. So you need to encourage them not to complain. You need to encourage them to have a better attitude. And you need just to tell them it's up to you to have a good attitude. It's up to you to think of some things you want to do. And then you try to encourage them along the way. Now, if they still have a bad attitude after 10 minutes, some kids do, and I've had some of my kids have hung on to that. then you leave them alone. Let them stew in their own juices. There's nothing wrong with a child having a bad attitude. If they're keeping that kind of to themselves, they're not taking it out on their siblings, they're not being obnoxious about it, but you can kind of tell that they're still not enjoying themselves. Leave them be. Let them stew in their own juices. Let them figure out what they want to do or don't want to do. Give them that space. Pray for them inside that they'll have a better attitude. Every once in a while, check in with them. You can acknowledge their bad attitude. Said, yeah, I know this is not the most exciting thing, but you can still have a good time. Let's think about some things why you can have a good time. So don't let your child's attitude derail your plans. Don't let your child's attitude make them miss out on spending time with relatives and friends and that sort of thing. Make it a no option kind of thing. Our kids know that they don't have an option. When we go places as a family, we go places as a family, and that's just it. And for the most part, that helps keep that attitude in check. Thank you for joining. That's my short video this week. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that you'll come back next week when we talk about church and how to get your kids to attend and what that looks like. I'm Sarah Hamricker again, and this is Some Assembly Required, the video edition.